I was somehow lucky enough to receive an invitation to the Dawntrail media tour, where I was given the opportunity to test out the level 100 iterations of all 21 of the game's jobs. In order to make sure you can get all the information you want quickly, I've sectioned each of my media tour videos into 3 sections. Firstly comes the changes and additions, including tooltips. Then I will talk more in depth on how I feel about the jobs. It's here that I'll talk about the various little bits and pieces that I tested, how this will shift their playstyle, and give you a bit of a primer of exactly what to expect going into the next expansion. Lastly, at the end of the video, I will have a full list of the jobs tooltips from the media tour build, including traits. Do please bear in mind that what I played was a development build, and it's totally subject to change, especially potencies, so don't take this as a final product, but it can be very useful to see intention and direction from the developers. Additionally, I had very limited time to test everything, and our play session was at like 400 ping due to needing to route the server access through North America, then all the way to Japan. So what you're going to be seeing from me is definitely not peak gameplay. My apologies, I did the best I could with what we had access to. With this Black Mage video, I actually did quite a lot of testing, so I'm going to go through the main skill changes, and then afterwards we'll talk about what I tested and what this likely means for the job. Firstly, Sharpcast has been removed from the game completely. Black Mage gets a brand new gauge in the form of their Astral Soul every time you cast certain spells, and from the job action trailer, we know that Fire 4 and Flare are within those spells. You gain a stack. At 6 stacks, you can cast Flare Star, a 350 potency GCD that will expend the gauge completely. You'll probably also notice that the Flare Star cast time is a little bit longer than your recast time. High Thunder and High Thunder 2 have been added as straight upgrades to the previous Thunder spells, and Thunder as a concept on Black Mage has been completely reworked. Now, you can only cast a Thunder spell when you have the Thunderhead buff. If you don't have the buff, the button is completely greyed out. You obtain the Thunderhead buff by going into Astral Fire or Umbral Ice from either no state or from changing between the two of them. That's it. Ice Paradox has been completely removed from the game. Now, the only way to get a Paradox is to go into Umbral Ice 3 with 3 Umbral Hearts, and then swap to Fire, giving you a Fire Paradox. Additionally, Fire Paradox is now an instant cast, and it also gives you a guaranteed Fire Starter proc. Mana font has been changed very extensively. Now it fully restores your MP, grants Astral Fire 3, gives you a Thunderhead proc, and provides you with 3 Umbral Hearts as well as a new Paradox. It is essentially a completely full refresh of your Fire phase. You can just do an entire another Fire phase straight away. You can now stockpile 3 stacks of Polyglot instead of 2, allowing you to prepare even more Xenoglossies for burst than ever before. Leylines has a new combo action coming off of it called Retrace, which allows you to reposition your Leylines instantly into a new position, allowing you much more leniency in your placement of it. This has a 40 seconds cooldown, so you can only do it once per Leyline. In their role actions, Swiftcast has had its cooldown reduced from 60 to 40 seconds, and Adel has its duration extended from 10 to 15 seconds. This helps him fall in line with the changes that other jobs have received recently, especially to their mitigative potential. Now that I've covered the main changes, I have a lot more to say about my testing and what this actually means for the job on the whole. As an aside, there are some potency changes across the board to certain existing spells. Please bear in mind that these are subject to change, but it can definitely help you discern the intention of the developer, and I think the changes kind of make sense. Fire 3, Blizzard 3, and Flare have gained 20 potency apiece, which now puts Fire 3 only 30 potency behind a Fire 4, and interestingly, High Fire 2 and High Blizzard 2 actually lost potency. They now do 40 potency less than they did before. This makes a lot of sense based on what else we know about the job changes. So, the big question. How does MP work now? You now gain mana from using ice aspected spells whilst in ice, and the amount of mana you regenerate depends entirely on how many stacks of Umbral Ice you currently have. If you have Umbral Ice 1, you will gain 2.5k MP. Umbral Ice 2 will give you 5k, and Umbral Ice 3 is a full restore at 10k MP. So you would, for example, Blizzard 3 into Ice and then do your Blizzard 4, and that Blizzard 4 would give you the 10k MP, but if you transposed into Ice, leaving you at Umbral Ice 1, and you did the Blizzard 4 then, you would only get 2.5k MP. As a note, All Blizzard spells in Umbral Ice are created equal, so all of them provide this same amount of mana. Umbral Soul is counted as an ice spell, and therefore will regenerate the same mana as casting, say, a Blizzard during downtime. When you're in Umbral Ice, even if it's Umbral Ice 1, your ice aspected skills such as Blizzard 3 and 4 will all become 0 mana cost rather than the mana cost reduction stacking per Umbral Ice stack as it did previously. Additionally, Square Enix mentioned the removal of mana ticks. At least based on the Media Tour build, I think this was a bit of a misunderstanding. What they meant to say was they removed Umbral Ice buffed mana ticks, because the natural mana tick still exists, and you can also still Lucid Dreaming in Ice, and it still has the same effect it did before. Of course, its value has gone down drastically due to the other changes, but I thought this was a very important and interesting note to make, because I saw a lot of Black Mage players freaking out over this. Thunder's potency is increasing quite a lot, but it's losing the secondary effect of the Thundercloud proc dealing its full damage over time as part of the initial damage, so it seems to kind of equaled itself out in that regard. I don't know where to put this, so I'll just do it here as well, but Black Mage also got a new Enochian trait upgrade, boosting its magic damage gain to 30%. Pretty big. Now regarding the build-up and spending of your brand new gauge. I've also tested a few things here. Firstly, and I'm sorry in advance because I know a lot of people will be disappointed to hear this, only Fire 4 and Flare build gauge, nothing else. Fire 4 gives you 1 stack and Flare gives you 3 stacks. That's it. You can also only use Flare Star when you are at 6 stacks. There is no option to say use a 4 stack Flare Star for lower potency or anything like that. It's not an option. Additionally, when you lose Astral Fire, either by entering Ice or by timing out, your gauge will completely reset to 0. You need to use it within that Astral Fire cycle, meaning that now Black Mage is fairly locked to wanting to do 6 Fire 4s in every fire chain. I also tested whether you needed to be in Astral Fire 3 to build stacks, and I can confirm that you do not. If you do a Fire 4 from AF1, you will still obtain an Astral Soul stack. You can do the Flare Star and Despair as part of your rotation in any order, they won't somehow cancel one another out, but it's important to note that they have the same extended cast time, which is a little bit longer than Fire 4 and even longer than your base recast time. The changes to AoE and the addition of Flare Star means that you want to spend as little time as possible casting High Fire 2 and High Blizzard 2 due to their potency reductions. So I imagine now it'll be something along the lines of High Fire 2, and then you'll get your Thunder off, and then you'll just go into the double Flare and Flare Star right away. You want to get at least 2 flares per cycle to enable Flare Star, and you want to get those 3 attacks rolling as quickly and as often as possible. Regarding single target, due to you now having 2 extended casts in the form of Despair and Flare Star, assuming you have the triple casts available and they don't need to be dedicated to movement during a particular period of time, you're probably going to end up triple casting the tail end of your fire cycle in an ideal world, and using that nice little F3P or your Thunder 3 proc or maybe a Xenoglossy to enable that weave. You could also maybe play around with transposing into fire after an ice phase and using your F3P immediately to get Astral Fire 3, but whether that would be a gain or not, I don't really know. I actually don't have the available time to math it out, so I'm sure somebody else will do it for me. So what does all that mean for Black Mage? Well, non-standard rotations as we currently know them are dead. There may be room for leeway and some funky tech, but right now the job is very closely tied intentionally to ensuring that you get a full fire cycle of 6 Fire 4s every single time, then going into Ice, doing your Blizzard 4, and repeating. I think the removal of Ice Paradox and Sharpcast 2 is an especially big hit to those creative rotations, and that in general most of the changes that have been implemented seem to have been done specifically to reduce the deep complexity of the job and those 40-page guides that people love talking about, and it seems to have been done in the intention of bringing more players together onto a baseline of understanding of how the fundamentals are going to work going forward. Black Mage is now essentially on rails mechanically, but there is still quite a lot of room for creativity in terms of extending your fire phases for movement with things like your now guaranteed F3P proc and your Xenoglosses, and if it counts for anything, I still had an absolute ton of fun playing it at the Media Tour. Basically, if you play non-standard Black Mage, I'm sorry for your loss, but if you play standard Black Mage, the job for the most part feeling-wise is very unchanged, and if anything is cooler than ever. Flare Star is really fun, and it's a very serotonin-inducing button to press. Honestly, I feel like Black Mage is one of those jobs that always finds a way, so I'm looking forward to seeing what the expert players will cook up given enough time with this new iteration. I'm sure there will be some interesting tech to do, and I can't wait to see it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Sorry this video was a bit long, I wanted to make sure that I told everyone everything I tested, because I know Black Mage is one of those jobs that kind of benefits from in-depth testing.